Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to write a book about personal experiences. Lots of books fall short because they forget about one specific thing. Stay tuned to find out what that thing is and some crucial lessons to help you with your book's foundation. By the end of this video, you will learn how to uncover what makes your story interesting, how to establish the framework for your book, and the best ways to make progress with your writing. And stay tuned until the end of the video for a free opportunity. Let's dive in. What makes your story interesting? What makes it unique? What makes it different? All of us have something important to say, a message. It could be related to a job you had. It could be related to your family history. It could be related to something else. Maybe you accomplished something. Maybe you failed at something. Maybe you're trying to bounce your way back. It could be any number of things, but you have a message, you have an important message, and being able to tap into that matters. For most of us, it's not about detailing every single thing that happened in our lives. It's about figuring out that narrow focus, that framework, and keeping the things that matter, that are inside that framework, telling those stories, and leaving out the things that don't quite fit. I remember a project I worked on with a dear client friend of mine named Rich, and it involved his family history and his ancestry and all these things he learned about himself when he was in his middle age. And the first time that we started working together, he had tons and tons and tons of writing done on all these different stories. A lot of them were his teenage years, his childhood years, his adulthood. And it took a long time to sort through them and recognize that a lot of them didn't fit in the book that he was telling. A lot of them did, but we really needed to figure out what was inside and outside of the frame of that book. When we were able to do that and really figure out what the message was that he was trying to say and narrow down on the stories that really matter, we could then make the book even more powerful, make the message more powerful, but adding in all these other things that didn't matter kind of weighed down the manuscript. So it was important for us to pick and choose and be like, okay, this belongs, this doesn't belong. And make those clear distinctions. And in the end, the story became that much more powerful because it was narrow, because it was focused, because it was tight. And, I think a lot of times with authors, when they're writing a draft, they'll include too many things that don't actually fit. So when you're thinking about your story, think about the things that are focused on that same through line, on that thread line. Make sure that they really connect to the message you're trying to share and not just extra details that the reader isn't going to need. And that really ties into the next point, which is think about the reader benefit. I go back to my friend Rich's book. It's called Blindsided. You should check it out. It's very good. I'm proud of Rich. And when I think about the reader benefit, I think about the journey to self-clarity, to understanding, to self-appreciation that Rich went on. And I think about the reader benefit that way. Somebody who picks up this book, maybe not knowing about Rich's story or not even having a lot in common with him, can connect to the feelings of self-identity and understanding yourself and loving yourself and appreciating yourself, that someone can learn from this. And when you think about your message and your story, think about how the reader can benefit. Think about the reader that can learn the lessons from your ups and downs in life, your struggles. It's not just about you. I know it feels very personal when you're writing a book and putting these personal stories into it, but it's really about taking your personal story and saying, how does it apply to somebody else? What can they learn from my story? Because if they can learn from your story, maybe they can encounter things differently. Maybe they can make better choices, more informed choices. Maybe they can improve their life in some little way because of the message that you're sharing. As you begin thinking about your book, it's important to do that foundation work at the very beginning of the process. It's going to save you lots of time, effort, struggle, and it's going to help you better understand what is going into this book. When I talk about foundation, I talk about hook, outline, and audience. The hook is really the takeaway, the reader benefit, what someone's going to carry forward with them. And that really needs to be really strong and powerful. The outline is the way it's structured. And sometimes I'll actually write down the chapters of a book on index cards. If I'm not really sure how to organize it, I'll write down index cards with each chapter listed and then tape the index cards to the wall or put them on the table in order to kind of figure out the way that I want to organize the story. And with audience, it's important to figure out who your reader is. because figuring out who your reader is aligns that benefit, aligns the purpose, aligns the hook, and allows the reader to get the most benefit from it. You want the exact right person to get access to your book and to be able to read it, and they're not going to know it exists if you don't focus on the right reader and keep them in mind. A lot of times when people write a book based on personal experiences, they focus it too heavily on personal experiences and fail to look outside of themselves, whether in documentation, whether in notes, whether in resources, whether in interviews with other people. There's other vantage points and blind spots and issues that could pop up if you're only focusing on your own vantage point and not stepping outside of that. Maybe the book feels limited. Maybe there's challenges to it, to the authenticity or the accuracy of the book. You want to be able to get as many viewpoints as possible and document this as much as possible to be able to back up any claims you make. If you want to put an accusation or a claim into the book, you want to make sure to back it up. And that's true of any story. If there's any big story, you should be able to either talk to people who remember it, get their perspectives, look at newspaper articles to see if there's anything that popped up about it at the time, maybe your personal records. Even if you don't use that information in the book specifically, it's good to have it. It's just good to be able to connect all the pieces and kind of triangulate the stories that you're telling to make sure they're as accurate as possible and that your vantage point isn't clouded by something, that the lens through which you see the story isn't cloudy, that you're just really seeing this from the broadest way possible. The writing. The writing's a big, hard thing. It's a really difficult thing. The writing. After you get the foundation work, you do all these, deep brainstorming sessions, you eventually have to write the book. And that's not easy. A lot of people struggle at this part. As you approach the writing process, think about what works best for you. Think about how you can make progress. With some authors, it's a matter of just sitting down in front of the computer and typing away. For others, it's walking around or sitting down and recording yourself talking and using that audio as a foundation for transcripts and using those transcripts as a foundation for the chapters. I use both of those tactics. I think they're both awesome. I love being able to take a walk and just getting my thoughts out of my head and onto the recorder. Then I can upload that audio into Otter or Rev. They're both audio transcription services. They're AI-based. So in a matter of minutes, you could take this conversation and turn it into lots and lots of words. You can then play around with those words and turn them into chapters. So it's awesome to be able to have this power and these tools at our disposal. It's great to be able to use them to your advantage as you begin the writing process. But as you begin writing, do what's best for you. Don't try to operate outside of yourself and learn a bunch of new tools that you're never going to be interested in learning. Find what works and just stick with it. But be open to exploring other options if you want to try them. Writing a book, as I said, is very difficult, but it can be done. And it's really a matter of consistent progress, consistent gains. Your goal as you begin writing this book is not to write a perfect book. Your goal is to write a serviceable draft that can then be edited and improved and punched up. But you need to get the words down. My friend Chad, who's an awesome writing coach, he talks about this as a dirty draft, getting that dirty draft done, and then going back and refining. Maybe you work through an editor and they can refine it further. But you need the draft. The draft needs to get done. That's the big thing. It doesn't need to be perfect. Please don't think it needs to be perfect. The drafts that I write aren't perfect, and I've written 25, 30, 35 manuscripts at this point. You're never going to have a perfect draft, so don't think you need to. Think of having a structurally sound manuscript and building from there, because this is a process and it's a long process, and the steps in that process are meant to help you get the draft in the sharpest shape possible, but it's not likely or expected that the draft in its original form is going to be perfect or even great. Serviceable, structurally sound is what you want to work on, and you can always punch up the writing from there. Another thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. So many writers get frustrated and give up when all they really needed to do is reach out to the right person. There's so many different book professionals, typically as ghostwriters or writing coaches, who can help you, who are interested in helping you. All they want to do is help people tell their stories, get their stories told, and write their book. And, it's easy to give up. If you don't have the right people working with you and helping you along, it's easy to give up or put it aside or spend a lot of time on a project that might not need that much time. So don't be afraid to ask for help. If you want to learn more about how to write a book about personal experiences, I really want you to check out another video I recorded. It's called, Is It Hard to Write a Book? That video tackles the need to stick with your writing, setting realistic goals, and my top efficiency tools. So click the link and be sure to check out that video. I really feel like it's going to help you a lot. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.